I never expected it to come to this. I had always thought my family was the glue that kept me together. We were a typical suburban family, my parents, my younger sister, and me. On the outside, we looked like any other family. But something shifted, something I couldn't put my finger on at first. It felt like a crack in the foundation, something deep, dark, and unseen. I'm 22, just old enough to start figuring out who I am, yet still tethered to the home that raised me. In some ways, I was still a child. But then my parents, they did something I couldn't comprehend. They kicked me out. The worst part wasn't the actual act of being tossed out. It was how it happened. It was sudden, like a storm brewing on the horizon. One day, I was sitting in the living room, casually flipping through the TV channels, and the next, I was standing outside, bags in hand. The door slammed in my face. It wasn't just the shock of it. It was the emptiness that came after. The first few days were confusing, filled with a sense of loss. I couldn't wrap my head around it. Why had they done it? What had I done to deserve this? But I had nowhere to go. I couldn't go to a friend's house, not with the anger and confusion burning inside me. So, I stayed in a cheap motel, my mind racing, piecing together moments that could explain their actions. Then, a week later, something happened that made it worse. I was home one evening, standing outside to get some air, when I noticed the curtains in the living room twitch. Just a flicker. The kind of thing you might miss if you weren't paying attention. My heart skipped a beat. Was someone inside? I hadn't been there in a week, but I never expected to feel so invisible. Something felt wrong, like a strange force pressing down on me. My family was home, but it was as if they didn't even care I existed. I shrugged it off, convincing myself it was nothing. I had just arrived back in the neighborhood, and maybe the feeling was just part of the chaos in my mind. After all, they couldn't have been planning anything that sinister, could they? They were my parents, the people who loved me, or so I thought. I tried to ignore the nagging feeling that wouldn't leave. I spent my days in a haze, too exhausted to make sense of anything, but my mind kept coming back to that moment. The twitch of the curtain. Was I being paranoid? My mind was constantly searching for answers, trying to make sense of everything that had happened in the past few weeks. But there were no answers. Not yet. By the end of the week, I found myself at the same spot, the familiar corner of my street, looking at the same house I once called home. But now it felt different. The weight of everything had changed. A lump formed in my throat as I realized I couldn't just walk up to the door and knock anymore.
No. Things were different now.
I felt a chill run down my spine. It wasn't until later that night, when I heard the soft murmurs of voices coming from inside the house, that the fear truly set in. The conversation wasn't loud, but it was there, barely audible. I tried to make out the words, my curiosity growing with each passing second. I could hear my mom's voice, but it was the tone that got me. It was too soft, too careful. And my dad's response, it didn't sound like him. Something was wrong, deeply wrong. But instead of confronting them, I turned away, walking down the street, trying to escape the thoughts that were racing through my mind. It didn't feel like I had much control over my life anymore. Everything was slipping through my fingers, and I couldn't stop it. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know how to fix it. I couldn't stop thinking about that moment, the whispering voices coming from inside the house. It felt like something was being kept from me, something I wasn't supposed to know. But what? Why couldn't I just leave it behind and move on? I should have been focused on finding a place to stay, on getting my life together. But every time I tried to push it out of my mind, that strange feeling came rushing back. The next few days were a blur. I found myself walking past my old house more often than I cared to admit, driven by an overwhelming curiosity. Was I imagining things, or was there really something going on that I didn't understand? Every time I saw a light flicker through the window or heard a murmur from inside, I felt like I was unraveling. It wasn't just the house. It was the little things, the way my mom's friends had started acting distant, the way my dad would suddenly change the subject when I walked into a room. Everything felt off, as though they were hiding something from me, something too dark to be spoken aloud. One afternoon, I was walking by the house when I saw my mom through the window. She was talking to someone, her expression tense, almost as if she was afraid of being overheard. Her voice was low, and I couldn't make out the words. But I did catch the flicker of a familiar face in the background, someone I hadn't expected to see. It was John, a family friend I'd known since childhood. But something about the way they were talking made me uneasy. My mom wasn't normally so secretive, especially not around him. I was confused. John had always been kind, almost like an uncle to me. But today, he looked different. The way he glanced around, his posture hunched, there was an air of discomfort that didn't belong. The next time I visited the old neighborhood, I decided to take a more direct approach. I knocked on the door, my heart pounding in my chest. The moment my mom opened it, I forced a smile, trying to mask the panic rising in my throat. She greeted me with that fake warmth she always used when we weren't on good terms. But there was something behind her eyes that I hadn't noticed before, a hint of something darker. "Oh, you're here," she said, her voice strained. "What brings you by?" I couldn't shake the feeling that she wasn't telling me everything. Her smile didn't reach her eyes, and her body language screamed of discomfort. There was a hesitation in her movements, like she was trying to keep something hidden from me. "Just wanted to check in," I said, trying to sound casual, but my voice cracked, betraying my anxiety. My mom's eyes darted over my shoulder, her gaze flickering for just a moment, but it was enough to make me feel like something was off. I followed her line of sight and saw John in the kitchen, looking straight at me. There was no warmth in his expression, no friendly greeting like I had expected. Just cold, emotionless eyes. It felt like he was watching me, waiting for something. I tried to ignore the unease bubbling in my chest as I sat down at the table. We talked for a while, but the conversation was forced, stiff. It wasn't the same. I could feel it. There was a tension in the air, thick and suffocating. And every time I asked a question, I was met with a vague or evasive response. "Is everything all right, Mom?" I asked, trying to sound casual, but I couldn't keep the suspicion from creeping into my voice. She hesitated before answering. "Everything's fine, honey. Why wouldn't it be?" I knew she was lying. I could see it in the way she fidgeted, in the way her voice faltered. I could sense that there was something she wasn't telling me, something that was about to break. But I couldn't bring myself to press any further.
Not yet.
After a while, I stood up to leave. As I turned to go, I saw John standing at the door, blocking my exit. His posture was tense, almost defensive. He looked at me with a strange expression, like he was waiting for me to say something. But I couldn't bring myself to speak. The words I needed to say were stuck in my throat. "I think you should go now," he said, his voice colder than I had ever heard it. I didn't argue. I left, but I couldn't shake the feeling that I had just walked into a trap, that something had been set in motion without my knowing. That night, I lay in bed, my mind racing. I thought about the look on John's face, the way my mom had avoided my questions. There was something going on, something they were hiding from me. But what? It was then that I realized everything I thought I knew about my family was built on lies. The more I thought about it, the more everything started to make sense. The strange behavior, the hushed voices, the odd looks. It was all connected. But I wasn't sure how. I had to find out. But as I lay there in the silence of my room, I couldn't shake the fear that maybe, just maybe, I wasn't ready to know the truth. The days blurred together. I couldn't focus on anything other than the strange feeling that something was terribly wrong. I kept thinking about what I had seen, the way my mom and John had acted, the weird tension hanging in the air every time I visited. Something inside me told me I needed to dig deeper, but I hesitated. What if I was wrong? What if I was just overthinking everything? But then everything changed. It happened on a quiet evening. I had just finished dinner when I decided to go for a walk. The night was cool, the air thick with unease. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was about to happen. I walked down the street, past the house I had once called home, and stopped in front of the familiar door. The lights were on, but the house felt different. Empty, as if it had been abandoned by the people who once filled it. The moment I stepped onto the porch, I heard voices from inside. My heart skipped a beat as I recognized my mom's voice, but it wasn't alone. John was with her again, and this time, there was no denying the tension between them. I pressed my ear to the door, holding my breath as I listened. "Are you sure about this?" John's voice was low, almost inaudible, but it cut through the air like a knife. "I don't know if I can keep doing this," my mom replied, her voice shaking. "It feels wrong, but we can't back out now. He can't know." I froze. My breath caught in my throat. I felt as though the world had just stopped moving around me. Was she talking about me? What was going on? I strained to hear more, desperate for answers. "You're right," John said. "We've already gone too far. There's no turning back now." My heart pounded in my chest, my mind racing.
They were talking about me.
They were hiding something big. I could feel the walls closing in, and the more I listened, the more it felt like a nightmare I couldn't wake up from. But then, just as quickly as it started, the conversation stopped. I heard the sound of footsteps approaching the door. I didn't have time to think. Panicked, I backed away, my heart thudding loudly in my chest. I rushed to the corner of the street, ducking into the shadows to hide. I was shaking, my hands clammy with sweat. I couldn't believe what I had just overheard. My mom and John, what were they hiding from me? What was so important that they were willing to betray me like this? I stood there for a moment trying to gather my thoughts. My head was spinning. The answers I had been searching for felt so close, yet so far away. I needed to know what was going on, but I didn't know how much more I could take. It was then that I made a decision. I had to confront them, but I couldn't just walk in and ask them straight away. No, I needed more proof. I needed something concrete, something I could hold on to before I went to them with these accusations. Over the next few days, I continued to visit the house, watching for any sign that would give me the answers I desperately needed. I was becoming obsessed, like a detective trying to piece together a puzzle, and every little detail seemed to add to the mystery. Then one afternoon, I saw it. I had been sitting in my car across the street, watching the house, when I saw John's car pull into the driveway. He was alone, but something about the way he parked, how quickly he got out of the car, it felt wrong. It felt calculated. I watched as he disappeared inside, his movements sharp and purposeful. I had no idea what he was planning, but I had a gut feeling it wasn't good. I waited until the sun began to set, my eyes never leaving the house. Then I saw it, the thing that would change everything. My mom stepped out of the house, her face flushed with tension. She was holding something in her hand, a small envelope. She looked around nervously before slipping it into her purse, then walked to her car without looking back. My heart raced. She was hiding something. I knew it, and I couldn't wait any longer. I had to find out what was in that envelope. I followed her. I kept my distance, careful not to be seen. My mind raced with questions. Why was she acting like this? What was so important in that envelope? She drove for miles, taking winding roads I didn't recognize, before finally pulling into a small, secluded area. The car stopped near a quiet park, where she parked and got out. She walked to a bench near the edge of the park, sitting down, the envelope still clutched tightly in her hand. I waited in the shadows, not daring to move. My hands were sweating, my body tense. This was it. I was finally going to find out what was really going on. After a few minutes, my mom opened the envelope. I couldn't see exactly what was inside, but the way she looked at it, the way her face twisted with emotion, told me everything I needed to know. This wasn't just an ordinary letter. It was something that could ruin everything. My pulse quickened. I had to know what it was. I made my move, creeping closer to the bench. The shadows swallowed me, masking my movements. I was just a few feet away when my foot snagged on a twig, snapping it with a loud crack. My mom looked up in an instant, her eyes locking onto mine. She knew I had been following her. She knew I had seen everything. Her face drained of color, and for a split second, she looked like a stranger. Her eyes filled with panic, but it was too late. I had already seen the truth in her eyes. The secret was out. My breath caught in my throat as my mom stood frozen, the envelope still in her hands. I could see the panic in her eyes, but more than that, I saw the guilt. Her hands trembled, and for a moment, she couldn't bring herself to speak. The silence between us was thick, suffocating. I didn't know how to break it, but I knew I had to. Mom, I finally whispered, the words barely escaping my lips. What's in the envelope? What are you hiding from me? Her gaze shifted to the envelope in her hands, and then back to me. Her lips parted, but no words came out at first. She opened her mouth again, as if to speak, but then closed it. I could see her mind working, calculating what to say, how to explain this away. She was stalling, buying time. I can't, she stammered. It's not what you think. My stomach churned as I saw the lies begin to form. She was trying to protect herself, to cover up whatever it was she had been keeping from me. I wasn't going to let her. No, I snapped, my voice trembling with a mixture of anger and hurt. Stop lying to me. I heard you. I know what you and John have been doing. This isn't just about an envelope anymore. What is going on? Why are you hiding everything from me? Her eyes widened in shock, and for a moment, I thought she might break down. But instead, she tightened her grip on the envelope and stood up abruptly, backing away from me. You don't understand, she said, her voice shaking. I never wanted you to find out like this. Then why didn't you tell me? I demanded. Why keep it all a secret? Why let me be the last to know? Tears welled up in her eyes, but she quickly wiped them away. Because I didn't want to hurt you, she whispered. I didn't want you to know the truth. I was furious now, my anger bubbling over like a volcano ready to erupt. What truth, Mom? The truth that you and John have been hiding something from me for years? The truth that you're betraying me and Dad? Her face paled, and I could see her trying to come up with some excuse, some justification for everything. But there was nothing. Nothing could fix this. John and I, she trailed off, her voice breaking. It's complicated. It was a mistake. But we didn't know how to stop. A mistake. I spat, my voice full of disbelief. How could you say it was a mistake? A mistake is something small. This is a betrayal. This is something that shatters everything. You've been lying to me. You've been lying to everyone. And for what? She took a step toward me, her hands raised in surrender. Please try to understand, she begged. It wasn't like we planned it. Things just happened. We didn't mean for it to go this far. But I couldn't understand. Not anymore. The image of my mom and John, sneaking around behind my back, sharing secrets, it felt like a knife twisting in my chest. All the years of trust, the memories of family dinners and holidays, had been tainted by this. I couldn't see my mother the same way anymore. No, you don't get it, I shouted. This isn't just about a mistake. You've ruined everything. I can't even look at you without thinking about what you've done. My mom flinched at my words, but instead of retreating, she took a deep breath and steadied herself. I didn't mean to hurt you, but I've made my choice. I've made a decision. My heart dropped. What choice? What decision? Her voice wavered, but she managed to say it. I'm leaving your father. I'm going to be with John. The words hit me like a punch to the gut. I staggered back, my vision blurring. It was too much to take in. My own mother, choosing John over our family, over everything we had built together. I could feel my whole world crumbling around me. You're choosing him, I whispered, barely able to get the words out. You're leaving Dad? For him? She nodded slowly, tears rolling down her cheeks. I don't know what else to do. I can't keep living this lie. My mind raced. My heart pounded. I didn't know what to do or say. The betrayal was too deep. The wound too raw. After everything we've been through? I could barely breathe, my chest tight with emotion. You're throwing it all away for this? She looked at me, her eyes filled with regret, but it didn't change anything. I'm sorry, she whispered, but I have to do this for myself. I turned away, unable to look at her any longer. The anger inside me was like a fire that couldn't be put out. The pain, the betrayal, it was too much. I felt trapped, suffocated by the weight of it all. As I walked away, I could hear my mom calling after me, but I couldn't stop. I couldn't go back to that house, to that family. I couldn't go back to the life I had known, because it was all a lie. But as I stepped away from the park, Something inside me snapped. I couldn't let this go. I couldn't just walk away without making her pay for what she had done. I needed to take control. I needed to make sure she understood the consequences of her actions.
And that's when it hit me.
The plan. I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the image of my mom walking away from me, choosing John over everything we once had. The betrayal was a shadow that clung to me, suffocating me with its weight. How could she do this? How could she tear our family apart so easily? I replayed the conversation over and over in my mind, each time the words cutting deeper. The next few days felt like a blur. I could barely eat or focus at school. My thoughts were consumed with my mom's confession, the weight of her decision hanging over me like a storm cloud that wouldn't dissipate. I was angry. So angry that I didn't know what to do with myself. And it wasn't just anger, it was confusion.
I kept asking myself why.
Why would she throw everything away for John? Why would she destroy our family? But as much as I hated her for what she had done, I couldn't deny that a part of me still longed for things to go back to the way they were. I wanted my mom back. I wanted my family back. But I knew it was impossible. The damage was done. Then one night, just when I thought I couldn't take it anymore, I got a call. It was from Dad. "Are you okay?" His voice was soft, like he was treading carefully, afraid to break something fragile. I swallowed hard.
I don't know, Dad.
I don't know what to think anymore.
Mom, she's with John.
She's leaving us. There was a long pause on the other end of the line, and I could hear the sharp intake of breath. I know, son. I know. But we need to talk. We need to figure out what to do next. I wanted to scream at him, to tell him that there was nothing left to talk about, that everything was ruined. But I knew he was hurting too. We were both broken. I could hear it in his voice. "I'm coming over tomorrow. I have something important to show you," he said. "Something you need to see." I didn't know what to expect, but I was willing to hear him out. The next day, I made my way to his apartment. My dad had moved out a few weeks ago, shortly after things had started falling apart with Mom. He was living in a small, modest place now, but it was his space, and it was all he had left. I knocked on the door, my heart racing with anticipation. When he opened it, his face was grim, his eyes red as if he hadn't been sleeping either. "Come in," he said, stepping aside. I walked in and sat down on the couch. Dad sat across from me, his hands clasped together tightly. There was something different about him, something in his demeanor that told me this wasn't just a conversation about feelings or closure. "Dad, what is it?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. He hesitated before pulling out a folder from beside him. He opened it slowly, revealing a set of photos. My eyes scanned them quickly, and then I froze. The photos were of my mom, photos of her and John, but not just any photos. These were taken recently, and the images were incriminating. I looked at my dad, confusion flooding my mind. What are these?" He didn't answer immediately. Instead, he slid another piece of paper across the table. It was a printout of a series of bank transactions. My heart began to race as I looked over the details. The dates matched up with the timeline of when my mom and John had started their affair. But this wasn't just about the affair anymore. This was something darker. "There's more," Dad said quietly. I didn't want to believe it at first, but I had to know the truth. I had a private investigator look into things. Mom has been hiding a lot more than just her affair. There's money missing from our accounts. Large sums. I couldn't breathe. The air in the room felt thick, heavy with the weight of the revelation. "Dad, what are you saying?" I asked, my voice trembling. He leaned forward, his eyes filled with a mixture of hurt and anger. "I'm saying that your mom wasn't just having an affair. She was planning to leave me, yes, but she's been taking money behind my back for months. And she's been using John to cover it up." My mind reeled. My mother, the woman I had always trusted, had been lying to me on a level I couldn't even comprehend. She had been siphoning money from our savings, our accounts, to fund her escape with John. She wasn't just abandoning us emotionally, she was financially abandoning us too. I stood up, pacing the room in a frenzy. I can't believe this. This is insane. She was planning to take everything and leave us with nothing. Dad nodded. It's all there, son. The bank statements, the photos, everything. She was setting up a new life with him, with our money. And now I don't know what to do. I sat down again, my hands trembling. The truth hit me like a sledgehammer. My world had been turned upside down. It wasn't just about the affair anymore, it was about everything she had taken from us. Everything she had destroyed. I don't know what to do either, Dad. I whispered. I thought we could fix this. But now I don't know if I can ever forgive her. Dad looked at me, his eyes filled with sadness. I don't know if I can either. But we need to take action. We can't let her get away with this. Not after everything she's done. And then it hit me, the full extent of the situation. The plan. The way I could make her understand the consequences of her actions. But this wouldn't just be about confronting her anymore. This would be about making her realize the true weight of what she had done.